welcome back to Trial by Podcast. I'm Isabel, and today I'm here with...
Allegra, and today we're diving into something which is pretty topical at the moment, both outside of the law and within the law, which is AI, and sort of whether it's a revolution or just a shiny new toy.
Yes. It's definitely coming more and more into the legal sphere as it develops, and that can be anywhere from researching to drafting, and as a paralegal, it has been already a great tool. I think it's just using it in an ethical way.
Definitely. And what we're going to get into shortly is just kind of with all of this new exciting tools and information that comes with AI, there's also a lot of downsides, such as hallucinations and a whole lot of questions that come into play and how it's going to kind of interact in the legal practice.
Yeah, and just throwing off that, how lawyers will actually use AI in the real world and the implications of our use.
So firstly, we're going to get into kind of what's working and how AI has strengths in the legal practice. So AI is already streamlining a ton of legal grunt work. It can help with client intake, document review, data extraction, even summarizing sort of extensive page contracts in seconds.
There's quite a lot of different platforms as well that we're seeing emerge. I know originally the big one was ChatGPT that everyone was sort of using, but from that we've seen, I know I've been using Gemini recently, which is a new
I haven't
Google
heard of
one.
that. There's so many. I honestly didn't know about many of the AI techniques until coming to McCabe's. So we use Nexus AI a little bit. Then what's the one that we have? Copilot as well, which is like kind of just on the side.
And even the new Lexis in itself and how it's constantly changing, because it was only recently it was Lexis plus AI, and now we're seeing Lexis Protege.
Protege. I was like Prestige.
Close enough.
Yeah, but I know it's pretty exciting, and also as someone who's just starting out, it's going to be really interesting to see how much of a role it kind of plays as we go on.
Exactly. And I guess where we draw the line, putting in information, but what information we need to keep out because it's confidential, how much we actually trust what AI produces, because in itself, like you said before, hallucinations, which we'll go into a little bit more.
Yeah, I was about to say that, and also kind of linking into, before we get into the court cases and talking about hallucinations, sort of legal research. I know that that's what I've used it quite a bit for starting out at McCabe's, just sort of giving me some ideas, although it comes a lot from the prompts you give, which we'll kind of also discuss a little bit and how important those are. But yeah, having it be able to give you a whole bunch of cases, whether they be accurate is kind of more questionable.
Whether they exist.
Yeah.
But I get, in terms of AI in the law, it sifts through so much information because it is this massive public database, that the big scary issue is going to be whether or not what you're receiving is an accurate representation of what's actually out there, because it is sifting through so many different versions of cases and people's interpretations of cases.
Definitely. And I think that kind of comes into play with the whole idea of like efficiency, but then also accuracy, like making sure. And talking about that, why don't we get into kind of where it's sort of gone wrong in some case examples and the whole idea of hallucinations.
Yeah, that sounds like a great point. So we have a couple of real-life examples from Australia. Recently, in 2024, there was Handa and Malik, and that was a case where a solicitor actually submitted what looked like proper case summaries, and I'm sure at the time they developed them, they believed they were proper case summaries, complete with medium-neutral citations, which if anyone doesn't know that, that's essentially just the citation that the court provides to us. And it turned out that those cases didn't actually exist.
Which is crazy, and that's kind of a good kind of link into what hallucinations are defined as. It's kind of just where AI confidently fabricates case law and citations, because with AI, it sort of gives you the outcome that it thinks is the best, but it might not necessarily know sort of the accuracy of those cases. And there was another case, which was Value and Minister for Immigration, where a lawyer filed submissions citing authorities and quotes from a tribunal decision. But that decision also didn't exist. And I feel like it gets a bit concerning when you're talking about cases like in immigration where, it's something really important on the line, like it's someone being able to move somewhere. So you really do want them to be relying on cases that exist. And it would be a bit
Absolutely.
concerning for, the client themselves.
The real life implications. I guess it's not like you have a really big commercial case and there's significant implications that come with that. But as you say, someone's immigrating, it's their actual place of residence. It's their life. There's a lot more to contemplate in that regard.
Absolutely. So I feel like this kind of shows us, it's a bit worrying about the lack of understanding of how AI tools actually work. And it also brings sort of a really crucial point, especially for us lawyers, that we need to verify everything that we're kind of getting from AI and really be careful on what we're putting in, because ultimately we are lawyers and we're still responsible for the accuracy of what goes to the court.
Exactly. And if you provide something to the court, you're wasting the court's time. I know in the case of Value and Minister for Immigration, the court made a point of saying how the judges and their associates, their time had been wasted in searching for these citations that appeared to be real, only to find out that they'd been completely fabricated and hallucinated by AI and yet relied upon because lawyers hadn't properly verified their sources.
I know, it's crazy. So why don't we discuss a bit kind of the ethics around it and get into the Australian Solicitors Conduct Rules, which are pretty crystal clear. Our duties don't just go away because AI is involved.
So we have, if we break it down, rule number 4, there's a duty of competence, integrity, and honesty, which I think lends to the concept of verifying the information that you have. To be a competent solicitor, you need to actually understand what you're providing and what your argument is, both on behalf of your client and to be able to present it to the court. And from an integrity point of view, that's not possible if you're completely relying on the sources produced by AI without running through and ensuring that your legal advice is accurate, because at the end of the day, you're responsible for it.
Yeah, absolutely. We've also got Rule 9, which is all about confidentiality, which I feel like is another big one. AI tools can reuse the data that you input. So putting client info into a public AI tool, that's sort of a really, really big thing, especially sort of the whole idea about how lawyers are trusted with secrets, confidential business deals, family matters is kind of, iffy if we're giving generative AI all this secret information.
Exactly. I was talking with the principal of our firm just the other day about the concept of secret keeping and AI. And you look at, say, a circumstance of someone's looking to draft their will. They may have an illegitimate child that they don't want anyone to really know about. And if a solicitor drafts a will through AI, inputs that details, it's then in the public domain. Anyone could access that. And this person's secret that they're trying so hard to protect, but also look out for their child, is quite an ethical minefield.
I know, definitely. And it kind of brings into the whole idea about sort of our role as lawyers and what's expected of us and how ultimately our clients put a lot of trust in us. So really making sure that we're, keeping their information private. Rule 17 is another one under the Solicitor's Conduct Rule, which is the whole idea of independence and that we must exercise our own professional judgment. So I think this sort of brings into the whole idea of, with those cases, clearly they trusted the AI's output, and that's just not how it should be. Ultimately, we are solicitors and we're the ones who are trusted to give out the legal advice. So we should be making sure that the legal advice that we are providing or what we're providing to the courts is accurate.
Exactly. I heard the phrase the other day, AI should be used as a tool, not a colleague, because
I like that.
AI is not capable of providing legal advice, and at the end of the day, it's your name that you're signing off on something that you're blindly trusting.
Yeah.
There's also, if you look to Rule 19, the duty to the court, in that you must not mislead the court even if it's unintentional. So in the circumstances of the cases we have discussed, they may not have intentionally meant to mislead the court, but in not following through in fact-checking what they've provided, they have misled the court. And that's something to really consider when looking through your use of AI and fact-checking and the legal advice that you're providing.
100%. And just another one before we kind of move on, bias is actually another thing that's real in AI outputs, and AI can reflect the values or biases of its developers. And when these tools learn from skewed data, they can pick up on those same blind spots. So that's something to really look out for and consider.
Yeah. And in a similar tangent to what we discussed on confidentiality, the concept of intellectual property, you have to protect your client's intellectual property. If you're putting forward into AI dealings that are in relation to, say, someone's trade secrets, and that's then put out into AI, that's quite negligible from a solicitor.
Yeah.
And they're clearly, like, it's hard to protect your client's best interests if you've just disclosed something so integral to their business to a public domain.
100%. And even if AI could keep a secret, can it really understand what should be disclosed to the court versus what should be protected? Yeah.
Exactly. Which, again, the duty
Yeah.
to the court, you can't say in like a criminal circumstances certain things where confidentiality is overridden, and AI doesn't have that degree of understanding at its current form. I don't know if that could potentially become
Yeah.
something, but to actually weed out what should be provided and what shouldn't be provided.
Yeah.
Which I guess leads into privacy, sorry.
Yeah, no. I mean, I feel like we did mostly kind of talk about privacy. And so one thing we could also get into is what lawyers should do and what it means for us practitioners. What are our responsibilities when using AI?
And a lot of the courts have actually produced practice notes which set clear boundaries about the use of AI. An example would be in the New South Wales Supreme Court. They have their practice note SC Gen 23, and that just sets out the boundaries of what solicitors can and can't use AI for in the context of the court.
And there's also the Law Society of New South Wales Solicitor Guide to Responsible Use of AI, which outlines steps for both pre and post adoption of AI tools. Some highlights include establishing a clear use of cases and desired output, understanding the data your AI is trained on, ensuring client approval and data hosting compliance, continuously testing your AI performance, keeping records, especially if output might go to court, and staying up to date with professional development, which I feel like at McCabe's we're really fortunate because we've obviously got the knowledge team who is constantly working on this. And with that, obviously a big thank you to Fiona who helped us with sort of drafting this script.
And her breadth of knowledge into all the new platforms. It's so hard to keep on top of
really
everything.
Yeah.
I guess in the context of what can lawyers do now, let's finish with some practical advice in terms of how we can stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's kind of four big things. Firstly, staying informed, keeping an eye on new tools, legal tech developments, and regulatory updates so we kind of know what's going on and what to watch out for. Second, building technical proficiency, so sort of knowing how to safely use the AI tools that our firm allows, understanding limitations and how to craft precise prompts, which what I was talking about before. Sort of prompts are the thing you put in and then you get the outputs. I mean, I know that if you don't provide a specific enough prompt, I think that's where AI can get a bit confused, especially with cases. That's what I've noticed, at least from when I've used it. It's you put in a broad prompt and it sort of brings you this whole thing of cases and it might have one word and it's just somehow sort of been bundled in, which is how I can see why sort of those court cases come up.
Yeah, so I guess there's a lot of education that's needed in terms of, as you say, the prompting of AI. You sort of have to lead it into the bigger question you want to ask
100%.
all the little questions to get to what you're actually trying to understand.
Yeah, making sure you don't just take the first one and go, yep, exactly.
And verify anything it produces again.
Yeah. Another thing is sort of honing your soft skills. So ultimately, what we spoke about before is AI can't replace emotional intelligence, public speaking, client rapport, or strategic thinking. Sort of remembering that as our role as lawyers, like we sort of take on those responsibilities and we're the ones interacting with the clients and they're trusting us with all this information. So just, making sure we've got the understanding of that.
Exactly. You can't supplement a lawyer with AI. We'll
Yeah.
constantly be relevant in the sense of like what our role is in legal interpretation and advice and the emotional intelligence and public speaking, client rapport.
Yeah.
I guess another element is stay curious, experiment
100%.
with ethical boundaries. You can share insights with your team, and the more that we learn from each other and the smarter our workflows become.
Yeah, no, I feel like that sort of sums it up. It is really exciting. And there's the whole question about sort of AI and law and whether it's a big game changer. I do think it's going to have sort of a big impact. I mean, it clearly already is. And I don't think it's something that we can necessarily avoid, but it's just making sure that we sort of deal with it appropriately and we kind of remember our role in the legal profession and our responsibilities, but kind of definitely taking it on board and seeing what we can do with it, because ultimately, time is of the essence, and if it can be used to sort of assist, it could be a great tool, and it is really exciting.
I agree, because you think about as a paralegal, previously you might be reading and reviewing 10,000 pages, and that takes up a substantial amount of time. But even if you have an AI tool that can go through those pages initially and you do a fact check, that
Yeah.
can be so efficient.
I was just thinking that I mean, both of us have done a lot of reviewing and
Yeah.
it can take a lot of time, but even being able to pick up on those words and like keywords and taking you to the pages, that could be like, it's kind of using it as a tool, but not necessarily relying on it fully.
Agreed.
I think that's sort of where I see it going. So, yeah.
It's a powerful tool. There's a lot to learn, and I guess also a lot of responsibility
Yeah.
as lawyers in how we use it.
100%. So thank you for joining us on Trial Bar Podcast. It's been really great to talk to you today and talk about such a interesting topic. So I'm really excited to see kind of where it goes.
Yeah, and we'll see you next week.